right, everybody, we'll be starting here in just a few seconds. If you're out there watching, you pull up the chat. Get this started. All right. All right, folks, and with that, let's begin the show. Hey everybody, this is Bryan Hogue. Welcome to Chiller Chat. Tonight, we have a guest on, Bryan Yeager. Some of you professional wrestling fans may know him as Lumberjack Leroux. So, without any further hesitation, let's get Bryan up here. All right. Bryan, there you are. How are you doing tonight? Doing great. I'm doing great. I'm fighting a little cold here tonight, but oops, I lost you there for a second. Let's see here. Yeah. There we go. All right, we're back. You know what I'm finding that I can't do is see the chats, but that's okay. All right, I think I recovered it. All right, so. Bryan, I've been wanting you to get you on the show here for a while. It's been quite a while since I've last talked to you regularly. So, how have you been lately?
Well, I've been doing great, thanks. I mean, professionally wise, doing great at work and keeping busy and during these hard times we're having these days. Company I'm working for currently, we're growing the business, so I mean, we're always busy, family wise and personal life wise, and the kids are getting bigger. Just one of those deals, we're just a normal people, normal family, So,
well, that's great to hear. Normal people, normal family. Now, I have to question, what type of person gets into professional wrestling? I mean, what was it about? What's that?
A little bit of athletic ability, I guess. Somebody that still has a connection with people, can communicate, somebody that can talk to people, somebody is very, let's say, charismatic, I guess, and a little bit of, and you have an ounce of creativity, I guess, and you put that all in a blender and mix it up, and you're at the start of what they call a professional wrestler. So that's a start.
Well, you of course were the among many things to your list of achievements and so forth. But you were the heavyweight champion. I know of Dark Horse Championship Wrestling, and it seems like just yesterday in some ways, and it seems like it has been 6 years in some in other ways. But those were good times. I always appreciated having you involved in the events.
Oh yeah, yeah. I really, really, really enjoyed the fact. I mean, all the Dark Horse stuff that we did, and not only that, but the fan base and the guys in the locker room, and the fact that it was, to me, relatively local, and and you had that local fan base that would come out as well. So it was a good thing, and that whole run was amazing. Actually, couldn't thank you enough for what you did for us there in the area, and not only that, but for all the guys that were involved. So
that was a lot of fun, and it was just so weird. That aired on WICU in Erie for 2 years, and it just seems so long ago. But that was a lot of fun. How long have you been in professional wrestling?
well, I guess started out when I was a junior. Well, no, was I a junior? I was a junior, sophomore in college. So I would say 1994, 95. And, that's when I went to my first tryout. And, they called and said, yeah, we want to continue working with you. And, this, that, and the other. they came up with this story of how I talked to my parents about maybe quitting college and doing this. I said, yeah, maybe you should talk to my dad about quitting college. No thanks, but all in all, we make sure that I made sure the education came first, and we got done with that, and did a few things here and there. But then, really, really, once I get that, the careers and the family, and everything started to build, and you get into that, and you just start working along with things, and kind of gets away from you, whether it's your dream or your passion or whatever. And it came back to light there. Really I had a friend that passed away at a young age, and I said to myself, if I'm gonna ever do some of these things, I'm gonna do it. And that was 2006, and started training at a place in Indiana, Pennsylvania, with a bunch of great people. I mean, and you might have heard of some of them, with Bubba Brewer and Chris Royce, or better known as Chris Coleman in the ring, big time Bill Collier, and a couple other guys that were there. Just we had the Maverick and Real McCoy, and those guys were there, and we worked hard, and then it was it was a good experience for me. And in 2007, really got into it, and really haven't left it since. So kind of got back into things, and even then, in 2007, I was 34 years old when I decided to become go back into my dream. And I wasn't the 22-year-old kid in college that was a football player and an athlete at the time, and worked out every day. I had to get back into that, and it gave me that second run at life.
Well, what type of how long was your training? You went to do a training for this. Now, how long did that last?
Yeah, I did. I like to say, I mean, it depends on the individual how long it actually lasts. Like I said, you throw all them things in a blender, and whether or not it actually, mixes in and gels, and whether or not they feel safe, and whether you can be safe with somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's not all about the moves. I mean, it is, but you have to have that connection with the crowd. You have to have that ability to be able to connect with somebody. And as I say to everybody all the time, when we're still involved in anything, when it comes to this business, is you want to make them remember. You want to make them remember something. You don't want them to remember Bryan Yeager. That wasn't what it was about. You want them to remember that lumberjack guy, that character, that part of that show where they went, yeah, I can connect with that somehow, or I can be something with somebody somehow, and or I can relate in some way. It was just one of those things that was, so it took me, I want to say, about 8-9 months to get to the point where I felt comfortable to go and tell some of the guys, hey, what do you think about this? And they said, sure, let's give it a shot. And ever since then, the ball's been rolling. Now that I'm older, I don't get involved in much as in-ring things, but behind the scenes things, yeah, absolutely still.
Well, I will say that you say you have that, that you have to have that connection with the crowd, of course. And I will say this: the very first Dark Horse Championship Wrestling show I had, it was actually it was in November. It was in this month back in 2012, and the very first show that we had, I was in the ring. I was reading off the names, or no, how'd that go? Oh, they announced you, Lumberjack
Okay.
Leroux, and you went out there, and I was in the back. I was in the back with Chad and some of the, all the boys and girls back there, and one of them said, "Geez, what did they do? Did they just announce Hulk Hogan?" Because you had like no other wrestler that I had met or worked with. You had a way with the crowd that was amazing. It really was. You went out there and they just loved you and cheered for you like nothing I had ever seen before. And that was I really thought that was pretty amazing.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I take to heart, and knowing that beforehand, to me, you go into a town, and in fact, in that town, they all knew me, and where 99% of them knew who I was, and that helps obviously. But my goal was when you go into a town, say, I remember the first time we went into West Virginia, into a place, and we had such a good time there. And it was a guy who took me, one of my best friends actually, Dickie there. He took me down there, and we went, and he said, now listen, he said, these people aren't going to know you. And I said, I know. And I said, but when I leave, they're going to know who I am.
Uh,
And when you know it, I mean, I went in there, and before the show even started, I'm in character. I'm out with the crowd. I'm mingling with everybody. I'm talking to everybody. I'm making sure they're having fun. I'm interacting with the DJ. I'm making sure he's playing music that they want to hear. I'm trying to get involved with the crowd somehow. And when I come out, when they called my name for my match, who actually down there was against a guy that and I know you know him, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it actually was the Mass Superstar, Bill Eadie, and I know you had him on the
oh
show.
wow, yeah, yeah. He was my
Yeah,
favorite. He was my
that,
favorite.
yep, I know he was, and that was an opportunity. And when I came out, and I remember locking up with him, and of course he has a mask on, and we locked up with him, and he goes, "Are you from around here?" And I said, "Absolutely not." And he goes, "Boy, you had me fooled." And that to me
Wow,
was like that. That right there is just one of the pinnacles in and you always keep that in the back of your mind, So
that
you
was
always make them remember who you are, and
what an
I always.
experience. What an experience that was. Brad says it's Chiller Chat with Bryan Hogue guest starring Lumberjack Leroux, and now here's Bryan and Lumberjack. I know Brad's he was a Dark Horse Championship Wrestling fan and a Lumberjack fan, so
Yeah.
um, but speaking of lumberjack, how did you come up with that idea? What led you in that direction?
Well, a couple of things. When I was a kid, my we heated our house. Well, I shouldn't say heated our house this way, but my parents really liked the ambiance of a fire in the house, and we had a lot of fires, and therefore you had to have a lot of wood. Well, we cut a lot of wood. My brother and I, when we were kids, that was one of the things we had to do before we were allowed to go do anything else. Whether it was after school, whether it was whenever, we had to cut and split some wood. Um, I liked the idea of being able to have a character of some sort that somebody could say, yeah, I can remember that guy. Actually, there was two things that I was thinking about. One was I came up with the name. Actually, there's a few people that helped me come up with that name. Um, you may know one. Patrick Pelletier actually helped me come up with this name with Leroux to add that to the end of it because I wanted uh, a French Canadian name. Lumberjack something. It had to rhyme, had to roll off your tongue. So we came up with that, him and I. But where I was from, where my persona is from, is Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, Canada, and that actually came from the movie Slapshot, which was one of my favorite movies as a kid.
Okay.
Um, and and just watching it, and they said one guy, Billy Coyle, who was a defenseman for the Johnstown Chiefs, was from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, Canada, which I find out nowadays. When I found out, as I go on through, I find out that it has one of the best hospitals in Canada anywhere. In Canada, it was one of the best hospitals in Moose Jaw of all places, and I just find it interesting how that all turned around and back to me, and I love that idea. You know what I mean? And I was a big fan of the band Jackal, and they had the song, Lumberjack. So that was that was an easy twist for me to say that's a song I could come out to. So it was cool. It all kind of came together, Brian.
Well, you say you were 34, and that's funny. That's the age I was when I became a police officer, and it's funny because those are ages that or those are wrestling and going into something like something physically demanding, like a law enforcement or obviously professional wrestling, but those aren't things that you typically go into at that age,
Right.
and but you did, and you fulfilled a dream of yours, and I was like, what was that like to have that dream, to go through the training, and then to what was it like to be in that first match? Now that match you were talking about with the Mass Superstar, that was the what back that wasn't your first one. That was But what was that like to be in your first match? Could you tell us about what that felt like to actually be in the ring with an opponent in front of the crowd?
Oh my. Um, it was weird. It was at the K Arena in Indiana, Pennsylvania, and I want to get the date right, but I know it was in April. It was like April 11th or something like that of 2008. First real match, like with myself and somebody else, not being a run-in or anything like that, but my first full-fledged match. And when they called my name, like the music hit, they called my name. I had a little bit of people there, meaning some family friends and my wife and my kids, and they were young. I mean, they were really young, and we always watched it on TV and everything. My kids and I together, and it was just one of them things where they really. And my wife even watched it on TV back in the day, but she, we got into that, and it was uh, wow. I mean, every emotion goes through your body, went through my body at that time. You almost forget to go through the curtain. I mean, I went through the curtain and I wanted to smile, even though I was a heel at the time. I wanted to smile. I wanted to, you know, pump my fists. I wanted to cheer for myself. I wanted to cry. I wanted to, every emotion, you're so nervous. You're just an emotional experience.
Yeah.
And to become with it, at the time, my first match ever was against the monster Abyss from TNA, believe it or not.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
he had just dropped the TNA heavyweight title, um, and he was on the show with us, and you know, all the guys that were there, they were like, yeah, Bryan, you have Abyss, and I'm like, yeah, right, yeah, I got what, and they were like, yeah, and I was like, oh wow, so that was a pretty cool thing, you know what I mean? And what a big man, strong. I mean, just he was a good dude, and he of course annihilated me. But I mean, it was one of those things where I sat there and I'm like, it was all surreal. I hate using that word, but it was, because it was like, this is my chance to make these people remember who I was. And
Yeah.
again, they did. And that was, afterwards when I saw, my kids' face, like I rolled over after I got, absolutely pummeled. Um, I see looks on my kids' faces, you know, and their mother at the time, and she's sitting there and she's like, I can just see her face like, oh my, why is he doing this? And then I can
What are
see
you
my kids'
doing?
face. My kids were in fear, except for my youngest son at the time, Daniel. Daniel was just cheering for the other guy because he knew he just got underneath me. So, but again, he was young and he just wanted to jab dad a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was an experience. I would, if I had it to do all over again, I wouldn't change a thing in that first match. Nothing.
You have you've accomplished. You've done something that most I know most young boys, if not all young boys at some part, and a lot and many young women
Yeah.
daydream of. And I know, when I was doing the shows and stuff, there was that kid in me that just like, wow, what would that, and I know I'm there and watching it and doing all this and being involved in that way, but there's that kid in me, that kid that you grew up watching professional wrestling thinking, oh, to only be able to be in that ring and do to do what's going on right now. And that's why I asked you about that first match when you're actually up there in that ring and it's time, and you for the first time you live out that dream in front of a crowd. I just can't imagine what that would be like.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an amazing experience. I think about it sometimes, and I'm like, wow, what really made me, what really hooked me. Some guys will have their first match or their first couple matches, and oh, this isn't what I thought it would be, and oh, this is a lot of work. Okay, it is a lot of work. No matter where you're at or what you're doing, I mean, it's a lot of work. If you want to be good at it, if you want to be one of those guys that just do it, I hate to use the word half-assed, but use it that way, and then
Right.
they don't do it the right way, and they know certain things, and they don't want to learn anything new. Not only that, but they don't want to grow into the persona. I mean, um, generally, I mean, I went through the career as you see some of the pictures as you're showing there. Sometimes I'm heavy, sometimes I'm not, sometimes I'm in decent shape, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I have the long hair, sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
Um,
There's
Even
one
though
with
now I
Jake
do
the
have long
Snake.
hair. What's
I
that?
said, there's one with you with Jake the Snake.
Jake the Snake Roberts and I were tag team partners. Yeah,
Yeah.
that right there, that particular picture is after the match. Um, but it was a great experience. Him and I tagged together. I mean, I've had the opportunity to be in the ring with some of the greats, in my opinion. Not only Jake the Snake Roberts, but Tommy Wildfire Rich, Bill Eadie, the Mass Superstar.
Yeah.
And I was, being in there with, George the Animal Steel. I mean, that was one of
Oh.
my favorites of ever. I got to chew the buckle with George the Animal Steel. Now that was amazing to
Oh
me.
wow.
I mean, that was something I saw Brian, that's something I saw every Saturday morning, from
Right.
1983 to whenever I started watching wrestling, was George the Animal Steel,
Yeah.
going bananas and chewing on a turnbuckle and throwing it at people. I mean, that was what it was about. He was a character, but what a guy. What did I learn from him sitting with him in the back and just talking, and the stories and the everything from him that was amazing. Just if you really want to learn what's going on, you always keep your mouth shut and your ears open, and that's what he told me. He goes, as he's sitting there talking to everybody and everybody's interrupting him and cutting him off and doing, he looked at me afterwards and he goes, you never asked me a thing. And I said, I don't have to. I said, all I had to do is listen to you.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, he said, you're a smart man. And I said, nah, you're smarter than I am, buddy. But yeah, it was a great experience. All the guys. I mean, to bring up Bill Eadie again, walk into a locker room and when you walk into this locker room and there's Bill Eadie and Barry Darso, better known as whom, Demolition, right?
Right. Right.
You got, and sitting beside them are you know Jimmy Hart and Abdul the Butcher was in there, and you had the Warlord and Barbarian, and you had in the same locker room, you had Greg the Hammer Valentine, who I've been in the ring with a few times, and Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and all these guys are in this together, and they look at me like, who's this guy? And Bill Eadie stands up and says, he's a good hand. He'll take care of you. And to me, that I wanted to run into the bathroom area and just cry, because that just broke my. I was just like, that pumped me up like you wouldn't believe.
Wow.
He trust, he trusted me enough to say that all these guys, all his colleagues, that this guy from Pennsylvania is, hey, you know what? He does well in the ring. He'll take care of you, and you guys take care of him. And that to me, that meant something to me.
Yeah. That's
Yep.
that's quite a compliment. Wow. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think is the appeal about wrestling? I mean, wrestling's been around forever. I mean, it's been talked about, in the book of Genesis, Jacob wrestling God, in the book of that far back as man as memory. But it's not just about this physical challenge. It's about good versus evil. It's about
Yeah.
the setup and the payoff. What do you think that appeal is? Because it's always there, and it's bigger than ever.
Right. As I said, if you remember about the guy that you got to throw into that blender, all the pieces you throw into that blender to make a start of a professional wrestler, in my opinion, you have that little bit of charisma, and you have that little bit of creativity, and we're all storytellers, and we're all listeners in a certain way that people can. And I always say I always say, make them remember. Well, what are they going to remember? Are they going to remember the moves? Yeah, maybe a little bit. Are they going to remember the the actual words you say, they may or may not, but they're going to remember that story you tell in the ring. Oh, you remember that match with that lumberjack guy and that other guy, and I say it that way just because you always try to outshine somebody else, but but you say that lumberjack guy and then that other guy, and maybe you may get told in the back, hey, this is how much time you have, and you say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna tell a story, and this is what the story I'm gonna tell. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that. Not moves wise, but what am I going to do to connect with the crowd? And I'm telling myself this. I'm not telling the other guy this, by no means, but I'm telling myself, hey, this is what I want to try to do. And if you get that all across and you tell a story in your, say, 6 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however long you get, that's an accomplishment. And if you can do that every night, then you know what? You're an accomplished person, and they keep you around. So, yeah.
I think what's kind of neat about this, to both the physically athletic individuals, to down to the the geeky people who love their superhero movies and stuff like that. I think the appeal of wrestling is, you know, it's for everybody. Like you say, you throw that thing, those pieces in the blender, but wrestling it is for everybody, and it's even for those who are never going to do a physical feat in their life, but yet in their mind, it's like reading a comic book. You guys, I always looked at wrestlers like the closest thing to comic book heroes and villains that we will ever come close to. You know what I mean? And some of the costumes are even as outlandish and colorful as that. Everybody's got these. They're characters. It's good and evil. It's these characters, and I find it so intriguing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you say the good and evil, and that's the whole mix of it. I mean, if you go into a town and you've never been to, and they say, hey, you know what, call it, you're the good guy tonight, or you're the bad guy tonight. Okay, well, this is what I have to do. Um, I loved doing either, but my character made me more of the good guy,
Yeah.
because the big lovable lumberjack guy who could, connect with the crowd, or you could personally connect with, but also then there's that other side of me that you could really hate. And that came through verbal things, or, when you're in the ring and you're cheating a little bit, or you're doing what, not a little bit, a lot, or you're doing something, that's maybe illegal in the ring, it's one of those deals that you sit there and you say, you know what? Yeah, this is what my story is going to be tonight, and that's the that's the way that story goes, And you're right. It's the story. It's the power struggle between good and evil, and it's just one of those deals. It's really really fun to come up with, and that's that part of that creativity part that I talked about. You have to throw in there, and you have to have that. So. Well, you're putting up some really good pictures. I see these things. That's amazing. That's pretty cool. I
Hey,
like a lot of that stuff.
look at this! Look at this younger version of you and I from
I
back in 2012.
Yeah, I seen that of you interviewing me there, right there. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at you. It's like you got a baby face compared to now.
I
No.
know, I know. It
Yeah.
had to happen.
Yep.
Well,
No, that's
believe it or not, Brian, I told you this is going to go quick, and it has, and we're already at the end here. I see. It's already the end of the show, if you can believe that. But if anybody wanted to, I mean, you don't do the into the ring in ring wrestling these days as much, though, right?
not too much. I mean, there is opportunities, here and there, but if I ever do, I mean, I always put it on my Facebook page and I throw it out there, and we,
Okay.
put it on, the what I'm involved in now with Pro Wrestling Rampage in Erie, and we always put it on that page as well. So there are some shows that we are going to start having here in 2022. Oh wow, what a word! 2022. That's awesome. But to throw that out there, locally here in this area, we're going to try to go into. We went into Clarion once a couple years ago before the pandemic, and really well. And there's some really good young talent, some really good young guys from the Clarion area, and we're going to be back over in that area again in 2022. Of course, in Erie and Asheville, Ohio, and all as well. So to do a little bit of traveling, but there is that opportunity to be in the ring again for me in some of the areas. So I'll never say that I'll never do it again, as I scratch my head there. But I will say that I will have fun with it when I get to do it. I always go the best I possibly can. So yeah.
Never say never, right? So
I guess.
well, if you viewers, I know there was several comments and so forth. I just didn't get to, but I want to thank everybody for joining myself and Bryan Yeager, the Lumberjack Leroux, here tonight. And if you want to follow Bryan's, his events and so forth, you want to check out. Check his page every once in a while. Go to Bryan Yeager. You can see his name spelled right there on Facebook. And hopefully you get a chance to check out some of the events that he's involved with. So, Bryan, thank you very much. Very much. I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while, so appreciate you coming on tonight.
No, I appreciate this. I mean, I appreciate you, digging somebody like me up out of a hole and saying, hey, you still involved, So, no, I'm kidding. But no, I really appreciate everything you did for me and everything that you've done for everybody involved with Dark Horse Championship Wrestling, and doing this chiller chat and keeping that going. And you talk about somebody like me having a passion. How about yourself? I mean, this is amazing. This is awesome, man. I tune in sometimes too as well. You see me on there every once in a while.
Yeah.
I think that stuff is awesome. I think and I grew up with the whole. We've talked about this before, but with the Chili Billy Cardilli and all them guys, from Pittsburgh and all that, the old fashioned shows and that just amazed me that, this is what, that was your passion and this is what you're doing. And that, anybody out there listening has to understand that this, if you have a passion of something, whether it may be cooking, it may be making meatballs, it may be boom, whatever, do it and do it the best you can. And if you can't, find somebody that can help you and don't be afraid to ask, So, just take advantage of what you can, but then make it your own. And that's what you've done, Bryan. And I applaud you for that. And I thank you for having me on your show. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And we'll have to have you on again soon. I enjoyed this. I could have gone another half hour easily. So I have to have you on again here soon. So, don't go away too far.
All right. Oh, I won't. Merry Christmas to everybody and happy holidays.
All right. Same to you. Thanks a lot, Bryan.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. All right, everybody. And just want to thank you once again for joining us here tonight. Have a good night. Have a good chiller night. We'll see you next week.